Hello, welcome to the Well of Wellbeing. We are back again, continuing our series on relationships and couples. So today I have some really cool people. I have just told them I've been waiting to hear from them. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy listening to them. So let them introduce themselves.
Hello, we are the Royal We. I am Steph, and this is my husband Ian, and we have been married for nearly 10 years this year. So, yeah,
Amazing. Hi, Steph. Hi, Ian.
Hello.
And thanks for having us. Like, we're honoured to be here.
Wow. You guys, can I just say, first of all, you are a stunning couple. You just you just look good together. Yeah, can we just get that out of the way? You do look amazing together. Yeah.
Flatter will get you everywhere.
I
know. Okay, this will be a time for us to just get to know you guys better, and also to hear about your journey. And you have been married for 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years, May 21 will be our 10th anniversary. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Still alive.
Can I just ask you, I'm super nosy. Can I just ask you, how did you meet? How, when, where, how did this start?
There you go.
So we both were brought up in Christian families. My mum and dad were always Christians, always into church. Steph's mum and dad came to faith while she was quite young, so we all used to go, and we're all in the same sort of church circles, but we all went to, I don't know if you call it a conference, but we used to go to Spring Harvest in the early 90s, and as part of that they had a kids club, it was caravans and chalets, it was that kind of place where people would go and stay. And Steph and I met when I was about 4 and she was 3.
Yeah.
And I was told beforehand by my mum I was to look out for this girl who I didn't know, so I could try and make friends with her, and here we are.
How nice.
That's amazing. Thank God for moms, isn't it? She already saw it. And so, Steph, did you actually notice Ian at that time, or how was it for you?
So Ian remembers this time really clearly. I don't remember it at all. My excuse is being 3. I wouldn't have remembered. My first memory of Ian is when our family came to the church that Ian's family were at. So we would have been about maybe 7, 8, 9, that sort of age. So I can remember being in like Sunday school with Ian, and yeah, just being about his family, and we were good friends. We were always part of kids church together and then youth ministry. I did have a little bit of a crush on him when we were maybe 12 or 13, early teens. He was a very pretty boy. He was immaculate, and so he was very cute. But then as we got into our early teens and things, I actually left the church that we were part of. I went to Aberdeen to study for a wee while, and we were good friends, but absolutely not interested in each other in the slightest.
We were not each other's type at all.
Not at all. Not in the slightest, which we find quite funny. So I went away for a wee while. I went away for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden we ended up back in church together when I was 18, Ian was 19. And we spent quite an intense year getting to know one another. There had been grief on both sides, and we just rekindled our friendship, not at all thinking that it was going to end up in anything romantic, and then kind of quickly we realized that this is actually going somewhere that neither of us ever expected or ever imagined, and yeah, so we built a very good friendship, and then all of a sudden we thought this actually might be more than what we are realizing, and so we were brave.
Our church wasn't exactly that big, so
No.
It wasn't like we had a large group of friends. There was maybe at the most 8, maybe 10 people who are our age range. So actually, it was it was actually kind of natural for us to be a lot more friendly when Stef came back.
Yeah.
And by that point, we'd kind of gotten over our completely selfish teenage years. And it was more, we're starting to get older, we're starting to actually realise that life is much bigger. So, and the fact that we both experienced grief in our immediate family as well. So actually, we became a bit of a support for each other. And I think that obviously opened up a whole new level of not just friendship, but that's like, I can really trust this person. I can really open up to this person and tell them something that I'm really struggling with.
Yeah.
And it completely changed things.
It's really amazing, but also very encouraging to know that, things change and people can come back together in different ways. But can I just ask, maybe going to Stef, when did you, or what did Iain do where you just went like, he's the one?
So for me, I've always, so the desire of my heart has always to be a wife and a mum. And I had a brilliant example of a really loving marriage in my own parents. And I just thought, oh, wow, I can't wait until I find my husband and we can build a family together. So that was always the desire of my heart. But I'm also a massive control freak sometimes. So I had this big 10-year plan where I was going to uni, and while I was at uni, I was going to meet somebody who preferably worked in the oil industry, was about 6'5". I was so specific, played rugby, had to be tall. Now, if you know Iain, he's not tall, we're the same height. He doesn't play rugby. He's not a big built guy. He certainly doesn't work in the oil industry. So I had this really not fixed idea, but I knew what I was looking for in a husband because I wanted him to be able to match all of my dreams and my desires of what a family looked like. And so I was trying to make my future husband fit that role. So I had my list of what it was I was looking for. So when things started to kind of fall away and life wasn't going as I imagined it would, and grief came into both of our lives and we started talking, we genuinely both had this kind of like, wow, what is life actually, what are we actually doing here? What is our purpose? What's our call? Iain was coming back to church, not that he'd ever left, but he was really going back to church with a new attitude of, well, I'm here to serve God and put him first in everything. So as I was kind of walking through that journey, I realized that I can't control, I can control elements of what I do, but who God brings around me is completely up to him, and I need to let him show me different things in people that maybe I wouldn't expect. So for me to realize Iain was the one, I don't actually think there was a moment of going, oh my goodness, he's the one, wow, thank you Lord. It was just this natural progression of genuine, really strong friendship, and actually realizing Iain is everything that I am actually looking for. And I maybe didn't realize it. I realized it maybe for somebody else. Like he was always very good looking, a lovely guy. I think I actually said to your mum at one point, way before we were ever an item, he'll make somebody a lovely husband one day. Never thinking that it would be mine. But also my mum would quite often tell me when I was younger, your future husband may actually be in your friend circle just now. Don't discount the people who you get to know, the people who understand you, the people who are in your life. Like, don't discredit them. I think she said you may kiss a few frogs before you find your prince, which I certainly did, because I was trying to find the man to fit my dream and that wasn't happening. So I don't think it was so much of a grand realization of he's the one for me, but just listening to God in the season that I was in and going, why not just take the chance on, okay, he's the complete opposite of me, but actually that is really good, and he's not what I think I need, but actually he's more than what I think I need, and take the chance on this on the friendship.
Amazing. That's beautiful. What about
picture.
for you, Ian? Sorry?
It certainly paints a picture of me, doesn't it? Goodness.
Well, do you know, I'm actually I'm going to ask you the same kind of like, so what about for you, Ian? When because this is so interesting, isn't it? Out there, everyone thinks that it happens like with thunder and lightning, but actually it's much more than that. So what about for you? How do you move from just mom saying like, look out for that beauty, and to you then realizing this is my wife?
So, well, I think as a little bit of background, that I am not that big a personality. I'm not that outgoing, and to be honest, I wasn't ever, when I was growing up, I was never really that much of an ambitious person. So really the complete opposite of what Steph had an idea. She knew what she wanted. I didn't. I do remember thinking at one point when I was a teenager and when I was, for lack of a better word, stupid, I thought I would like any girl who looked almost any different anyway, with any hair color except for red hair. And
legitimately, this is,
I guess this is really just a way that God has a real sense of humor, and like, well, actually, here you are, ta-da. So, but do you know, to be honest, I think the thunder and lightning and the big, bold, like, it really couldn't be further from the truth as far as our story goes. It was really, there wasn't really anything like spectacular and like fireworks. If anything, it was more, somebody was there in the first place, and there was friendship there. And even now, I would say the same thing, is that I don't think I was probably looking for the spark when I looked for my wife. I thought, I want to find somebody where there's going to be a spark, where there's going to be, you know, we just love each other. It's really dramatic. It's really writing poetry for each other, that kind of stuff. But to be honest, it actually was way more, dare I say, calm than that, and it was way more reliable than that. And actually, I'm good with that. Where we kind of developed a friendship, which even now I'd say we're still best friends.
Wow.
We're still in that place where there wasn't ever a pressure of, well, that's my wife and my wife ought to do this, or that's my husband and he ought to do that. There isn't really any ought to. It's mostly just because we were best friends, it kind of just became best friends. Plus, we actually really love each other now, and it kind of grew. And to be honest, I don't think, similarly to Steph, I don't think there was a moment where I thought she is the one. I think it was a gradual process.
Wow.
I realized that I had feelings for Steph maybe about a month or two before I actually asked her out. And we were about to go with one of our other friends. We were about to go down to a conference, and I had prayed and prayed and prayed, and I said, God, here's an ultimatum. I'm going to give you this week to tell me if I should make a move or should I not.
Yeah.
And God did exactly what I now know he would do, is that he said absolutely nothing to me. And the point of that was, I needed to actually be bold and be brave and just make the move anyway. Yeah. And lo and behold, it was maybe just after that week that I had asked her out, and it was perfect timing, and it was good in the way that we grew together really organically, like really naturally. Yeah. I don't think we weren't exactly stereotypical of we're gonna go out on dates, we're gonna wine and dine, we're going to what you would think would be the normal thing. We actually just spent time together as friends, and because we knew that it was more than that, it just grew really naturally. So
it was definitely faith steps, wasn't it? Because I can remember that sense of going, this is maybe more than a friendship, and that was terrifying, because if we took that step to be more than just friends, then that's either going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be wonderful, or there was the chance that actually wasn't going to work, and then that's a really special friendship. Like, is that ruined? Both our families know each other very well as well. Ian's got an older brother who is married to another very good friend of ours, and we've all grown up together. So there was a lot invested in our relationship. Not that they were the key important things, but it was more than just, oh, it's just two people, let's see what happens. It was actually, we're talking about our futures here, and we definitely had the attitude of, if we do take this further, then our intention has to be marriage. I had dated people before where I was just kind of testing them out to see, are they my husband? But I never had the attitude of, they may actually one day be my husband. I'm so thankful that they weren't, but I knew that this was different. I knew that I had to go into this with a completely different attitude. And I think that probably goes back to us knowing that it had to be from God, and that this was the one, because our attitudes towards it was totally different. It was in faith, and we were willing to take that step of faith. And even working towards our wedding day, I can remember on our wedding day thinking, wow, oh my goodness, God is giving me the desires of my heart, like literally on a plate. Here you go, here's everything that you've ever wanted. But still having that thought of, I am doing this in complete faith, of trusting that he is the man for me, and that he will lead us into everything that God has for us. And so it's just about taking constant faith steps together.
Oh, guys, this is so beautiful. So who said I love you first?
Who do you think?
Who do I think? Let me see if I'm going to get this one right. Steph.
Yes. Yeah. Got it. We talked about this last night.
I was so annoyed that she got there first, because it was cute because she didn't actually say the words.
I wrote them.
We had gotten into a habit, because we worked in the same shopping centre. Like, I worked in different shops but in the same centre, so our shifts would be different. So, but when we park in the same sort of place, and I would finish work, and then all of a sudden there'd be a note on my windscreen wiper, and we would exchange notes that way. Even though we obviously spent time together, we called and texted all the time, but then we'd also leave notes. But then it was by one of these notes that Steph said the L word first, and I was like, she got there first.
I don't know if that was like a bit of a cop-out, like writing it down, but I think because that was the way we went that extra level to express ourselves to one another, was through these notes and gifts on car windscreens, that I kind of thought, he'll just think it's another note, like see you after work or something like that, and it's like shock horror.
Yeah. From some secret admirer, just dropping you a hint that, actually, here I am. But that's so cute. That's the sweetest ever. But there is something about writing it down, though, isn't it? That actually someone really thought about it.
Okay. I want to express this to you. So yeah, I was first.
So you guys, just before we move from the kind of like pre-marriage time, was there anything you would have loved to know before you got married? Was there anything, or either you would have loved to know about each other, or that you would have loved someone to have told you about marriage?
Yeah, I don't think there was necessarily one particular thing we would have liked to have known. For us, it was definitely, we maybe should have valued having other married couples around us first. So we were apart from one other couple, we were the first of our friends to get married in our group of friends. So that was probably to our slight disadvantage. We were fairly new to the church that we are still part of Destiny Church. So we had kind of friends in lots of different areas, but none of them kind of maybe been married for a good few years ahead of us. And that is probably the one thing that we would agree, that it would have been great to have more young married couples around us before getting married. But I think in terms of knowing anything about one another, we pretty much made sure that there was nothing that would have come as a massive shock when we eventually got married.
I think we were fairly good at making sure, because we'd spend lots of time together anyway, so the sort of day-to-day stuff, actually we knew a lot about each other in normality, but also if there had been anything in either of our past or either of our personalities that we think, I'm not sure how we're going to deal with this, we actually had those kind of difficult conversations before we got married, which I think is important. But at the same time, I think that to agree, I think if we knew particular married couples who are close to our age, maybe kids, but maybe don't have kids yet, the ones who are actually really, really close, really similar to us, who can not only explain to us, okay, here is the sort of right thing to do, here is the right way to speak to each other, here is the right and wrong thing, but also, okay, now here is the reality of it as well, so here's the lived experience. And I think that was maybe something we didn't quite have. And it's the sort of thing that we feel quite passionate about, is that we want people to know that, first of all, we can tell you what we believe is the right and wrong way to do things, but also here is the lived experience as well, which needs to go hand in hand. It kind of helps people be realistic with what they expect from each other as well.
Okay, that's amazing. So I'm going to dive right in and say, so what would you be telling, let's say, a couple looking at you guys and saying, this is how it's supposed to be and this is the realistic thing to be expecting? I kind of like, it's always a little bit of a shock, isn't it? Like, even if people have been very, very good friends and they've actually been spending a lot of time together, actually being married and living as a married couple is just, it's so new. And so, yeah, I want to hear from, up to you, who goes first. What would you be giving as an advice as to, girlfriend, this is what to expect, or come on, dude, this is what you'll be doing, just don't freak out, that would be her, and that's your life now.
I think I would probably say to somebody that when it comes to even the practical thing of moving in together when you're married, when you finally are living with who is now your husband or wife, give each other that little bit of time, a bit of extra time than you think is right. Be patient with them. I think both of us were quite shocked at what it was like. Neither one of us did anything particularly shocking when we moved in together, but I think we were both kind of like, we've never actually lived with a partner before because we don't believe we should be. So let's just take things slowly with each other. Let's not annoy each other with things like, I don't know, like tidying up the kitchen or tidying up things in the house, or with who uses the bathroom first, just silly stuff like that. Be patient with each other. But
always him.
But what do you know?
Who spends the longest in the bathroom? By the way, I want to know.
100% Ian.
Did you guys realize that you did this? Each one of you was pointing.
Ian was putting his hand out. He was claiming it.
Okay, claim it.
I own it. But do you know what? One thing that was a thought at the time, I remember this really vividly, is that people read such ridiculous things in magazines of, when you finally are sort of married and you're sharing a bed together, what is odd is that they think, oh, well, wherever you guys lie, whether it's like on opposite ends of the bed or whether you're snuggling or whatever it is, that will tell a lot about your marriage, or that will tell a lot about your relationship. And if you don't sleep in a way that is maybe a bit more leaning into each other, or then it means that you guys are not close and you guys are in trouble. And we read those kind of things before, and honestly, we are probably the ones who are like, actually, when we go to sleep at night, we actually don't
touch me.
Like, no, we realized quite early on.
I need my space.
We realized early on that actually we're kind of okay with facing the opposite way from each other to fall asleep, but making peace with that was an active choice. And we're like, there's nothing wrong with us. We just are okay with that kind of space. Yeah. And I think people need to be patient with each other to allow that to be a conversation as well.
Yeah. Do you think it would have been a bit of like trouble times, if one of you was a snuggler and the other one is like, I do need my space, please, 2 meters apart, social distancing, thank you very much. Do you think that would have been an issue if, let's say, you got two people who are a bit different?
I don't think, and I think that's what Iain means by giving time to it. And so, yeah, try snuggling for a few nights if that's what you want to try. If it doesn't work, that's okay. You can snuggle at other times. It doesn't need to be as you're falling asleep. You know, there's lots of different things you can do. There's no hard and fast rules as to, you know, this is what you must do. You absolutely have to find your rhythm with one another, and find your grace for one another and things like that. Like, I can't, noises are a thing for me. I can't abide the sound of eating, of breathing. Like, so, yeah, just don't be anywhere near me when you're eating or breathing, which is quite challenging, isn't it, when you're married?
For the rest of us.
For the rest of us, yeah. So yeah, I think it definitely giving yourselves time to find space for one another, being okay with closing off some of your external people for a wee while. We had a good wee bit of time off work after we got married, and we deliberately didn't go on honeymoon straight away. We took a week of just being married, being around our new flat together, just trying to get into a bit of normal routine before we then went on honeymoon. And rather than, you know, you've got your wedding and then you go off and then you come crashing back down to reality, we had a wee bit of reality, still in honeymoon bliss, but at home and around our things that we would need to get used to, and then went away and then came back and then got back into work and routine and things like that. So yeah, definitely give each other time. There is no rush into things. Be gentle with one another, be gracious with one another. I'm just so glad that Iain is incredibly patient. I am not a patient person. He is 10 times, 100 times more patient than I am. So yeah. And I think that's what's good about being opposites of one another. I think so often we think we need to find the person who is exactly like us and will understand us and gets us. But actually, us being completely opposite is a massive blessing, and it allows us to grow, and it allows us to adapt as well. And yeah, definitely just take your time with one another and be patient.
That's amazing. Okay, so I really wanted to hear from you guys, just the process of children, and you know, like children are a blessing to a couple, to a married couple, for those who would like that. I know that some couples said right from the beginning they would rather not have, but I think as a natural process, most people are expecting to be having children. So I just wanted to find out, you guys are proud parents of 3 gorgeous children.
We
Yeah.
are.
What are their names?
We have Joshua, who is 8.5, and Zoe, who is 6 in 2 weeks' time, and Brody, who is 3.5. So we have 3 wonderful children, and they are a massive blessing to us. They keep us on our toes all the time. So we are so enjoying this chat because it's just so relaxed and there's nobody interrupting us. So yeah, we have 3 amazing children.
No one is screaming or breaking anything in the other room, so we're good.
Well, first of all, we'll give them a big shout out. You know, they're absolutely loved, and they are a joy to you guys and to us as well. Yeah. So just the first question is about, had you decided before getting married that you were going to have kids? Yeah, was that an actual decision, or do you think that should even be discussed before people get married?
Massive discussion to have before you get married.
It's a must.
It's a must.
You need to talk about it before you get married,
because it is such a huge part, and it is okay not to want children if you're married. If you're married, that's totally that's your choice. But we both knew we wanted children. Iain, having an older brother, already had nieces and nephews, which was lovely. So we knew that family was 100% top of our list. I knew that way before I was with Iain that I want a family, and we had the discussions. We knew how many children that we wanted. Our decision was definitely 3. maybe 4, and that is now definitely 3 and no more. So we are done. So we had that discussion. We discussed when would we like to have children, what sort of age gap would we like between our children. It was a big, it wasn't a big massive right, we need to sit down and we must talk about how many children we are going to have and when are we going to have them and things like that. But just like we said about through our friendship, just it being part of our conversation and not being scared to ask questions and discuss things completely openly.
I think that, like what I mentioned before about being best friends with each other, I would say it's a must for no topic needs to be off the table. Like, you need to be willing to go there in your conversation about anything, and things like having kids and things like any dreams that you have. I think you don't need to settle them completely before you get married. I don't think you need to be like, well, we've now signed and sealed that contract and that's what's going to happen. That's our prenuptial agreement. But you need to at least have some kind of resolution, some kind of, okay, we're at peace with this being where we're going to, how we're going to move forward. And I mean, that can open up for us. So when we were married, we were able to talk about what names do we want for our kids, and we had that all planned out, which thankfully I think we were particularly vocal about that with each other. So we're good at discussing that. But I think making sure that you have that conclusion, and I guess the one thing we didn't really decide as an absolute, well, we're going to wait 2 years before we have kids. We kind of thought, maybe a couple of years just being married would be great, and I think that was the point. But it wasn't like no, here is the deadline. It was just a rough sort of estimation of time.
Because I fell pregnant with Joshua 5 months into us being married, which was a little bit of it was a surprise. It was a big surprise. But at the same time, I knew that was okay because that was part of our plan. It maybe wasn't exactly how we would have planned it. I was in my we got married 2 days after my final exam for uni. I think I sat my final exam on the Wednesday and we got married on the Friday. So there was a bit of debate, or do I go back and do my honours year? What do I do? I had a kind of really good job at the time and it was going somewhere, so there was decisions to be made. And then all of a sudden I discovered I was pregnant and that made the decision for us. I do still remember feeling terrified at the same time of thinking, oh my goodness, this is real. This is what we're going into. But again, it's just going back to those faith steps and knowing that, well, we are in this together. We are moving forward into these things. We've spoken about these things. And it's scary because we're bringing another life into the world, but it's not scary because I know that God has us. This is part of his plan, and we're doing it together. So,
Amazing. Because so I was wondering about when things happen unexpectedly, or on the other hand, and I know this was not your case, but did you ever discuss if babies didn't come or babies didn't come soon enough? Was that a discussion that you ever had?
I think to be honest, we didn't really ever consider the idea of not being able to have kids. I think because it was always on the table, it was always kind of a plan. And then when Steph fell pregnant a bit earlier than expected, we thought, okay, well, it must just be all systems go on the plan and we must just trust God with it. So that never really came up. But I think there's maybe been 1 or 2 times where in the past we'd mentioned, okay, what would we do? Would we ever have considered alternatives? We'd have considered fostering or adoption or those kind of things. But I think because we didn't ever have the issue of not having kids, it never really progressed on past that early conversation.
I think I don't know if this is maybe the case for most females. There's always something in the back of your mind of, what if I can't have children? And that is the desire of my heart. So I think for us, maybe we carry that thought maybe a bit more naturally than men do. And I had PCOS in the past and was healed of that before Iain and I were married, which I was really thankful for, because the desire of my heart was to have children, and I knew that having that condition would maybe change my chances of having successful pregnancies, or maybe even being able to fall pregnant at all. So I'd already walked through that journey. So I think for me, that it was kind of part of this discussion of, but it wasn't like, right, okay, what do we do if plan A doesn't work? What is plan B, C, whatever? It was always just part of that next faith journey, and really making sure that, well, what is God saying in that moment, and what is his will for us? So it's kind of about having the discussions, but also, like Iain said, not signing a contract to say this is what must be, and just completely trusting him. The next faith step, he will provide in whatever way that is, and just trusting him with that moment. So as much as Joshua wasn't planned, he was very much wanted, and that kind of set the course for the next stage, because we knew that we wanted to have a family. So okay, Joshua was a bit of a surprise, but that then meant that we were very planned about when the next two arrived. Really, like, to the day, this is the kind of gap that we're going to have between them. So we actually have a completely even gap between all of them. There's exactly 2.5 years between Joshua and Zoe, and then 2.5 years between Zoe and Rosie. So 3 children in 5 years, done, dusted.
Oh yeah, watch out for that. Thanks, Steph, for being a control freak. You know, you kind of like. Can I just ask then? My last question will be: what do you think about contraception, or the use of contraception for Christian married couples?
As in whether we should use it or not use it?
Well, do you know, like, some people may be thinking that maybe not. Some people say yeah, and so on. Yeah. So should it be used? Should it be planned? How do you negotiate that discussion?
So I think it's really sensible to use contraception. I think God has gifted doctors and scientists with the ability to take control of situations like that. So we did use contraception. We used hormonal contraception, and we used what we felt was right at the time. And now we have taken the step to absolutely make sure that we will have no more children on Iain's side. So we know that we are done, we are dusted, and we can take control of that, which has allowed us to take control back of our intimate life together as well, and not have to think about contraception, because it's not great. Nobody really likes contraception. It's not the most glamorous thing to use. You're either putting hormones into your body, which are not brilliant for you, or you're using things that are not, that you're using barriers that are not fun. They are, they get in the way. It's not that enjoyable. I do know some people who use natural family planning, and it works really well for them. I would be a big advocate for that, as long as you are prepared for the fact that you may fall pregnant.
Yeah.
So I think it's about, again, talking and discussing what is best for you guys right now, what works for you in the season that you're in. We wanted to be quite controlled about it, so we made sure that I wasn't going to fall pregnant at times that we didn't want me to be pregnant, but also we knew that if I was to fall pregnant, it wasn't the end of the world. So yeah, for us, we are pro contraception, and just using whatever is right for you in your marriage.
Yeah, I think being sensible is probably the best idea of it. Is best way to go forward. Is that if one thing isn't going to work for you, then try another option. Try and see what is going to work out best. Because kind of like what Steph said earlier about getting into sort of a rhythm with each other, is getting to know what is actually going to work, what is going to be a hindrance. And in our case, we just realised that even though at the time I was only 30 years old, and I think that's maybe the earliest stage for, we'll just call it out and say the word vasectomy, because that's what we're talking about. I think 30 years old is maybe what the earliest that they would be, that they don't really put too many questions in place, because they think, are you sure? No, are you really sure? Because this is permanent. And I think because we'd had the experience we had one surprise earlier pregnancy than we thought, but then we'd had 3 kids, and we're like, you know what, we're actually completely at peace with that now, where there's no wondering of, oh, I wonder if I want another one. That's not there for us. And I think we need to be, as couples, we need to be sensitive to what the other person is looking for, be able to communicate clearly with each other, but at the same time, if things don't go to plan, still trust God with it, because ultimately you need to be able to sort of roll with things that don't always go to plan. And God's great to put your trust in him more than anything else anyway. So yeah.
Amazing, guys, this has been a treat, and I'm kind of like thinking we should find another way of bringing you back, so that all the other many questions that people may have, or just wanting to hear from you, and as you say, just hearing from other people who are walking the walk, so that when they're talking the talk, they know exactly what they're talking about. Yeah, so hopefully we will find another way of bringing you back again to talk about the same thing. So thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you, Gracia.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.